When his daughter turned 18, she looked him in the eye and said, "I don't know you. You're just a man who sends birthday cards." He had missed her first steps, her first day of school, her first heartbreak, 3 deployments, 2 divorces from the family that was supposed to wait for him, and a war that took more than just time. He had 1 year left before she left for college, and he decided that 1 year was going to be enough. This is how a father who missed everything found his way back to a daughter who had every right to shut the door on him. Master Sergeant James Colton had been a soldier for 18 years before his daughter, Grace, was born. By the time she came into the world, he already knew what deployment orders looked like on paper, but nothing prepared him for what they'd mean once there was a child on the other side of them. Grace was 4 months old the first time James left for a 9-month deployment. He missed her first steps, caught only in a shaky video his wife sent over a slow satellite connection. He missed her first birthday. He came home for 11 months, deployed again, and by the time Grace turned 3, James had already missed more of her life than he'd been present for. His marriage to Grace's mother, Denise, didn't survive the 4th deployment. Not because of anger, not because of betrayal, just distance, the kind that grows quietly between 2 people until neither of them recognizes the shape of what they used to have. Denise remarried when Grace was 7. James kept serving. He told himself, every single time, that this deployment would be the last one. It never was. By the time Grace was 10, James had missed 6 birthdays in person, 3 Christmases, her first day of kindergarten, her first day of middle school, a broken arm, a school play, and a hospital visit for pneumonia that Denise handled entirely alone. James sent cards. He called when he could. Those satellite delays sometimes meant conversations felt more like reading a script back and forth than an actual father talking to his daughter. He sent gifts on birthdays, always a little late, always slightly wrong for her age, because he genuinely didn't know who his daughter was becoming. He was frozen in a memory of a 4-month-old, updating that picture only in fragments. Grace, for her part, grew up learning not to expect him. Denise never spoke badly of James. She made sure of that. But a child doesn't need to be told anything cruel to learn a lesson. Grace learned it in the empty seat at school events. She learned it every time a welcome home surprise got rescheduled because of an extended deployment. By the time she was 12, she'd stopped asking when he was coming home. She'd simply stopped expecting an answer. James retired from the Army when Grace was 17. 18 years of service, 3 combat deployments, and a chest full of medals that meant less to him than the years he couldn't get back. He moved to the same town as Denise and Grace, hoping proximity might do what phone calls never could. It didn't work the way he imagined. Grace was polite. She was distant. She called him James more often than Dad, not out of cruelty, but because the word Dad had never really attached itself to a real, present person in her daily life. It came to a head on Grace's 18th birthday. James had planned a dinner, hoping to finally have the conversation he'd been avoiding for years. Instead, Grace arrived, sat across from him, and said the sentence that would replay in his mind for the rest of his life. "I don't know you. You're just a man who sends birthday cards." She wasn't trying to hurt him. She said it plainly, almost gently, like someone stating a fact rather than delivering an accusation. But it landed harder than any blow he'd taken in 18 years of service. He didn't defend himself with explanations about duty, about orders, about a country that needed him elsewhere. He simply said, "You're right, and I have 1 year before you leave for college. I'm not asking you to forgive 18 years. I'm asking for one." What followed wasn't a grand gesture. It was smaller than that, and slower, which is exactly why it worked. James started showing up to the small things. Not birthdays or milestones, those had passed, but the ordinary Tuesdays. He drove Grace to her part-time job every week, even when she insisted she could take the bus, just so they'd have 20 minutes of forced conversation in a car. He learned she liked the same terrible reality TV show he'd always mocked, and he started watching it, badly disguising how much he actually looked forward to it. He didn't try to be her father in the way he'd imagined for 18 years. He let her set the pace. Some weeks, she barely spoke to him. He showed up anyway. Some weeks, she'd forget herself and laugh at something he said, then catch herself like she'd broken a rule she didn't remember making. Slowly, The silences got shorter. James learned, piece by piece, who his daughter actually was. Not the 4-month-old frozen in his memory, but an 18-year-old with opinions about music he didn't understand, a fierce loyalty to her friends, and a habit of chewing on her pen cap when she was nervous, just like he did. 6 months in, Grace asked him, not the other way around, if he wanted to come to her last high school soccer game. He'd missed every single one before that. He didn't miss that one. It wasn't one big moment that changed things. It was an accumulation of small ones. Until one night, close to when Grace was set to leave for college, she came into the kitchen where James was doing dishes and said, without any prompting, "Dad, can we get dinner this weekend? Just us." She called him Dad. James didn't make it a big moment. He didn't cry in front of her, though he later admitted to a friend that he'd sat in his truck afterward for 20 minutes before he could drive home. He just said, "Yeah, I'd like that," and kept washing the dishes, letting the words sit between them without making her feel the weight of how much it meant. Grace left for college that fall. James still isn't the father who was there for the first steps, the first day of school, the broken arm. He knows he never will be. That year he asked for didn't erase 18 missed ones, and he's never pretended it did. But she calls him now, not out of obligation, out of habit, the kind that gets built one ordinary Tuesday at a time. He still drives up to see her some weekends, and she still makes fun of how much he mispronounces the names of her favorite bands. James says the hardest thing he ever did wasn't 3 combat deployments. It was sitting across from his daughter, hearing the truth about what he'd missed, and choosing not to defend himself, just to show up over and over until showing up meant something again. If this story moved you, remember, it's never too late to show up, even if you can't undo what's already been missed. Subscribe to Quiet Heroes for more real stories about sacrifice, family, and the quiet work of earning someone back. See you in the next one.